really sound decision making. So that is where you need fact based, you need to know. And today many organizations look at that. So typical example is, you must have heard of market research. A lot of companies, when they launch a product, they do a market research. People come to you with questions and ask you, okay, we are launching this product, what is your preference, where do you go and spend your free time. They ask a lot of questions, then they go back to the company and present this information. And it is on based on that, that companies come up with new products, new services, etc. So that is where the whole data driven decision making is progressing towards. And now every day, new and new technologies, new and new findings are coming out to really perfect this whole thing. So what is this, how is it becoming a big deal today? Now, if you look at this number, you know the whole data driven decision making, or the whole analytics industry, is supposed to be worth about 40 billion by 2023. These are research findings. These are findings and figures which are quoted by some of the big multinational research agencies or consulting agencies. Now, when you talk about 40 billion, what is it actually? If you want to relate it to something, if you go to sites like payscales.com, or if you go to a Glassdoor kind of a site, you can easily find out the average or above average, or the range of salaries that a finance manager gets in India. And if you go by those figures, you're talking about paying 20 lakh finance managers their yearly salary. This is what 40 billion is worth. So you can imagine the scale at which this is growing, and it is supposed to be growing 17-18%. And what this also mean is the number of jobs that are going to be created for people who understand, who knows data analytics, and who also has a sense of numbers. See, everyone does not get into a job, or everyone does not pursue a particular domain just because they know everything. It's typically like engineers. People come out of engineering college, they get into the biggest of global IT firms like Infosys or TCS, and they go through a lot of training, but the basics have been set right. And that's what you also have to look at. So if you look at the job market in the US alone, IBM study, of course this is just before the COVID situation came up, but still there is a lot of demand that's coming up, which we can see ourselves from our side when we look at markets like US. But IBM says there are 2.7 million jobs, that is 27 lakh jobs for data professionals within the next 1 year, only in the US. And now if you look at a country, our country like India, and even in our state in Kerala, where there's a lot of development that's happening in terms of IT parks and IT initiatives, etc., there is a lot of movement that's happening. There's a lot of companies that are setting up shop there in Kerala. Now, if you recently read a report, there is a company called Jiffy.ai. This is artificial intelligence company, which is actually based in Kerala. I mean, it's a US-based company started by a Keralite, which is really grown well. They have an office in, I think, Kochi or Thiruvananthapuram, and they recently bagged a huge contract with AirAsia, and this was after competing with some of the biggest multinational corporations globally. So there's a lot of opportunities coming our way when you look at the whole artificial intelligence, whole data analytics area. So you need to be prepared for that. Now, some terminologies that many of you would hear, I'll just breeze through. As I said, most of these, you will hear a lot of these things, especially, since you are students of finance and management and commerce, you will hear these terminologies talked about a lot. So data science and data analytics are two terms which are very interchangeably used. There is not much of a difference, but the difference is in terms of the size. So as students of finance, you will know what a macro and a micro element is. You learn macroeconomics and you learn microeconomics. So data science and data analytics is exactly that. Data science is the whole science of looking at data, going through a lot of data and making sense of the data and making it ready for a lot of usage. For example, a Google search is all about data science. So you're looking at a lot of keywords, you're looking at tons and tons of information that is coming from across the globe on the internet, and then Google scientists are sitting behind and making sense of that data. And that is where all of us go to Google, because it's done so nicely. We all go to Google, search for things. I'm sure there are other search engines available, Microsoft's search engines, Bing, etc. available, but I would say 9 times out of 10, you would always be on Google to search. Why is it so? Because the data is so organized. The algorithms or the programs and the data models that are built are so nicely done, and it keeps getting refined all the time. Data analytics compared to data science is the micro aspect, where you're looking at a certain specific examples. For example, you want to know if, let's say, somebody is shopping on a particular e-commerce site, what is the likelihood of this person shopping you know 2 times the amount in 6 months time? That is data analytics. Or you want to look at the trends over the last 6 months and forecast for the next 3 months. That's data analytics. Another very closely related term is big data. What is big data? Big data is, again, like data science. Data science is what you use to go through big data. Big data is all the data in the world that you can imagine. So if you look at, let's say, an organization like, say, in the census organization in India, or the finance ministry in India, or the income tax department, they have a huge record of data. Or if you look at, let's say, a movie business, somebody who's tracking the movie business, now you have different kind of data. You have what you call the structured data and what you call the unstructured data. Structured data is basically what you put in an Excel sheet. There is a certain structure to it. You have a title, you have a column, you have certain field restrictions. All that is structured data. But unstructured data is what you see on social media. Somebody puts in a statement saying, okay, on a Facebook, you say that, oh, I liked your photo, oh, great picture. So all these kind of comments, or on Instagram, you post a picture and you comment on it. So that is unstructured data, because it is not structured within a certain thing. It is just plain text. So all that, and now the number of data points are growing. Now you have what you call the IoT, or Internet of Things. What is Internet of Things? Internet of Things are basically, you have devices which you can attach to a lot of objects or surroundings and get information about it. For example, you can have IoT devices or Internet of Things devices. Imagine it is like a sensor. You put a sensor on a plant, in a machinery, in a plant, in a factory, and it can actually alert you on when the machine can break down, or let's say a certain parameter on which the machine has to work has gone down. Let's say the voltage has gone down, or a certain crankshaft is not working. It can alert you intelligently before it happens. So this is what IoT is all about. So big data is all that kind of data. Artificial intelligence, I just mentioned, IoT is a perfect example. You must have seen when you walk across parks, it's a very simple example, but there are sprinklers which kind of put water on the lawns. Sometimes you see that in some places it automatically kind of turns on at a certain point of time. That's a very basic example of artificial intelligence. And then you go on to a lot of things like what I mentioned about IoT. When it comes to machine learning, what you're talking about is you train the IoT device, or a particular data analytics use case, to actually learn on its own. So the machine is learning on its own, and it can actually predict future outcomes. Is this possible? I mean, does this sound a little bit too much, maybe unrealistic? If you think so, a few years back, there was an artificial intelligence program, a robotic program, or a machine learning program which was developed by Facebook. Two programs, and surprisingly, what they discovered was these two bots, what they call as bots, is basically a program. They actually, through machine learning, developed their own language interface and started speaking to each other. And the project had to be scuttled. It had to be cancelled. You can find this on the internet. Check on Facebook, machine learning, artificial intelligence, robots developing a language. Different keywords, whichever one that you want to search, you will find this. So that is where the industry is progressing to. And then you have other things like optimization, which is something which probably as students of commerce, finance, and management might be very, very interesting to you. So this is basically like looking at a company's process and seeing where you're having wastage. Where is it that you can increase your productivity, efficiency, etc. And then build, various models. When you talk about data models, these are basically statistical and mathematical models which you build, which you configure, and which you code and program, which can predict, which can measure, which can give you insights into what your whole business is. Now, if you come to specifically to your domain, you know this entire data analytics and the whole emphasis behind data is actually changing the role of finance, and finance is at the center of it all. And you know, hence it is very. Hello, did anyone ask me any question? Okay. So, so the finance professionals today are at the center of it all. Now they are moving in. So earlier, if you talk about a finance professional, or when I studied, you do a BCom, your MCom, or you do an MBA in finance, you are looking at an accounting position, and then you're looking at an auditor's position, or you're looking at a finance manager's position. So, there are various choices to it. But today, it's become much more than that. So you're basically now looking at a finance role as an integrated business planner. So there are a lot of things, but there are three key things which hold the organization together, which is what the finance does. One is what you call the single source of truth. Single source of truth is basically nothing but consistency of data. So if you look at consistency of data, let's say if you're a finance professional, or let's say if you are a finance manager in an organization. Now, what happens is a sales department will have their budget, an HR department will have their budget, a marketing department will have their budget, and then if you have a logistics department, they will have their budgets, etc. Everyone, at the end of the day, they will all come to the finance department and say that this is our budget, this is what we want to do. Now the finance then has to keep track of all these different kind of things, and that's where they need to be the fulcrum in the organization to come up with a single source of truth, or a consistent data, and one data one data reference point which will say that, okay, this is what the overall budget for the organization is. Now, Mr. Sales Vice President, if you think that, if you say that your budget is 100, no, this is all that you have, and this is what you need to achieve. So finance has to actually guide those people. Similarly, compliance and regulations, again, now with data analytics becoming very prominent, there are a lot of these regulations. For example, you have something called GDPR, which is becoming very, very prominent, very imperative for everyone to look at that, which is data protection rights, actually general data protection rights. So GDPR kind of requirements basically necessitate that every organization, when it takes a data, they need to be very clear, why are they taking the data, where is it going to get stored, how is it going to be used, what is the format in which you are taking the data, have you taken the consent of the users. So there are a lot of these complaints, especially when you talk about a government organization or healthcare organization, these are law enforcement organizations. GDPR kind of a requirement becomes very, very complex. And then, optimization, which I spoke a little while back. And how do you do this? So essentially, when you look at data, the way you identify, there are three basic terminologies that you use: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. What are these? Descriptive is basically like, as the term says, it's a description. So a descriptive analytics is, it's like a report that, let's say the MD of the company wants to know what has been the cost of the plant and machinery over the last 1 year, or they want to know what has been the sales in the last 6 months. They want to know what has been the trend in the last 6 months. These are all descriptive. Descriptive will give you insights. They will show you what has happened. They will show you what has happened over what period of time. When it comes to predictive, that is where you forecast. So you say that, okay, in the last 6 months, this has been the trend. Now, what can the trend be in the next 6 months? And prescriptive is more like, you go to a doctor, you get a prescription, which is basically, I have a disease. Now, how do I get out of this disease? What should I do? So that is exactly like prescriptive. So prescriptive is, if you say that according to your predictive analysis, the company will touch a turnover of or double its turnover in the next 6 months. Or let's take a hospital, for example. Now, if you say that this particular hospital has got, 200 patients coming over the last 6 months, and now it has now increased to, every month 500. From 200 it has gone to 500. If at this rate, in the next 6 months, because of various reasons, it can go up to 600 per month, let's say, for example. So that is predictive. A prescriptive is, if it is going to 600 3 months later, what is it that I should do now? Do I need to plan for more doctors? Do I need to plan for more nurses? Do I need to have better outpatient facilities? Do I need to have better inpatient facilities? Do I need to have more surgeries? Do I need to order for more equipment? So it becomes planning. And that is where finance comes in. Finance is normally the people who are planning all these things. You take a very live scenario, which is happening here or in many other countries, and I'm probably sure that even in India, a lot of companies are doing this. In light of the COVID situation, there are a lot of retail companies, companies who sell clothes, who sell luxury items, etc. Their business have all been affected. So what are they doing? They are actually doing something called planning, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. So let's take a jewelry chain which has about 50 outlets, and because of the COVID situation, you know, out of those, many of them are not even being visited by people. They are running into heavy loss. They want to cut down on the losses. What would they do? So somebody in finance, a senior, the finance team will actually sit and analyze all these things. They will actually look at what are the kind of business that is getting done, where are people going to, which are the ones that are profitable, which are the ones that are not profitable, and then how can you actually make your decisions accordingly. So let's say out of 50 they may want to close down 20 of them, but do you want to retrench your staff? Do you want to lay off your staff? May not be a great idea, because during this situation, everyone is in a bad shape. So you would want to reallocate those resources to somewhere else, or reassign them to other stores which are performing well. Or even if you want to lay off somebody, you want to make sure that those people are compensated. So if you do that, what is the economic implication? What is the cost implication? These are the kind of things that happen in optimization. So that is where the role of finance gets very important. And that's where any future finance professional needs to understand what data analysis is all about. So let me just show you a couple of case studies. Now, this is something that we did for a client in the US. They are an equity research analytics, an equity research company. What they do is they work with these big equity research organization or investment organizations like Morgan Stanley, or those kind of people. They look at reports from the UN authorities, or there are United Nations sponsored reports, or there are US federal government sponsored report. They look at things like different industries, different countries, different sectors, etc. And what they do is they've all been doing it through Excel. So if you see what is there on the screen right now is an Excel sheet. So you can see that at the bottom there are different tabs out here. Sorry, different tabs. You have retail, you have call industry, etc. Then you have various graphs which are all generated through Excel. So you can see sector monitor, retail. Then you have US consumer sentiment index, retailers. So all this is developed on Excel sheet. What happens is, every time a new report comes, somebody has to sit, look at all these figures, put it into Excel, generate those charts, generate those graphs, etc. Look at the amount of time that a finance professional spends on this. Now, what we did was we actually did this entire thing on what you call a business intelligence. This is a dashboard, automated dashboard. So all the tabs, if you see the left hand top corner, you have now nice icons out there. You have those tabs, those tiles which says retail report, oil and gas report, coal report, different industry sectors, etc. You click on one of those, you come into this. So this is the very first step of any data analytics professional, to present the data in a format which is automated, which means once you have this automated, lot of time for a finance professional or an equity research professional in looking at this data, taking all this data in, putting it into the Excel sheet, generating all this, then sending it back to their managers or their MDs, etc. All that effort is saved, all that time is saved. And instead of just being a reporting, you actually can get insights. For all that you see here, the charts, the graphs. Now, if it is interactive, what happens is if I point to a certain section of the chart, it will actually give me a particular value. So, it is very interactive. It will give you a lot of insights. So this is a very simple example of how data can be used if you automate it properly, if you move away from a manual system. What is the kind of insights that you can get? So this is one such example. Another one, you know many of you would pursue chartered accountancy or cost accounting kind of courses, and you may become an auditor. Now this is a typical audit case. Auditors these days, with the analytics coming into the fore, they are not just looking at a standard audit. When I was young, or even till recently, maybe about 4 5 years back, audit used to be someone would come into the office, or someone would go to an organization, look at a checklist, see whether these things are met, are these complied, and then everything is fine. They sign off a report and go. Today the auditors are asking, or are mandated to go beyond that. In true audit, what happens is you're looking at inconsistencies. So for example, you're not looking at one branch. So earlier, if you go to an audit of a bank, they would go to one branch and audit for one branch. Now they're going to, let's say, a bank's zonal office or a regional office. Sitting there, they have access to data across all the branches across that region. And then they are looking at inconsistencies. Earlier, a report was like, singular reports, one branch report, audit done, everything fine, signed off. But now, with from the regional office, from a centralized location, they can look at all the data, and they can come out with insights which actually tell you what is wrong, what is right, apart from just being compliant. And compliance comes into it, because you may come out with a lot of insights into what are the best practices, what are not the best practices. So this one is a big one of the big five auditing and management consulting firms hired us for one of their clients who has a fleet of about 1,000 odd vehicles, and they wanted this auditing firm, this management consulting and auditing firm, to suggest to them how could they reduce the cost. So they actually called us in, and our data scientists and our data analysts when they looked at various kind of things. So for example, economical life cycle of a vehicle. What is economical life cycle of a vehicle? It basically means that what is the current value of the vehicle, how much are you spending on the vehicle today in terms of maintenance and other things, what was the original value, and does it make sense to dispose the vehicle and buy a new one, or continue with that vehicle. This is purely the meaning of that. Yes. Hello. Yeah, so so then there are different kind of aspects that we looked at. So you had fleet planning and scheduling, revenue planning analysis. So there is a lot of data that we looked at. So if you look at, you know there is driver data, there is telemetric data. Telemetric data is, those devices that is kept inside a vehicle, which will give you information about how the driver is driving. Are they braking too frequently, are they changing lanes, are they driving rashly, all these kind of things. Then maintenance data, vehicle data, shipment data. So different kind of data, there are a lot of data points. So all this data put together, you know you had to take all the data together, you had to analyze the data, and then come up with a lot of recommendation. For instance, there are things like, we found about 20% of the vehicles, or 30% of the vehicle, I think, it would have been good if they just disposed it off. Because see, in a big organization, every month they come with a maintenance bill, the finance just signs it off, or the operation signs it off, sends it to the finance. After the approval, finance pays it off. But when you actually look at the data very closely, and when you have a huge volume of data, your normal manual Excel kind of analysis alone will not work. That is where you create these programs, these data models, which has the capacity to look at large chunks of data and throw up inconsistencies in data, throw up exceptions. So this, in this case, it threw up exceptions which said that every month you are spending this kind of money on maintenance on this percentage of vehicles, which is not required, because it is better off if you dispose it and get new vehicles. Similarly, we identified fraud, which is, all these drivers are given cards to fill up petrol. But what happens is, we came out with this, we identified a lot of instances where the driver and the vehicle is present in one location, but the petrol or the diesel is being filled somewhere else, because somebody else is using that car. The driver is given to a friend of his, and they are filling the petrol or diesel into his own car or in his own truck. So, and no, it's pilferage or fraud. So a lot of these kind of things. So we actually reduce the overall cost for their operations by about 40%, 40% or so. Similarly, we looked at we worked with one of the leading event hosting and managing organization in the Middle East. You know, the scale at which they operate is, they conduct various kind of events. For example, they have these global conferences. Let's say, for example, a global conference of climate change, which is going to happen in the UAE, and they host that kind of event. So they host these large scale events in the UAE, and the economic value contribution of their business every year is nothing less than $6 billion. And the entire planning process is being also on Excel sheet. For example, if they want to know what is it that they need to expect for an event 3 years down the line, they had huge Excel sheets with lot of data, lot of columns, everything, lot of fields. And somebody is actually sitting and calculating, okay, this event or this type of events, we spent this much amount, we had this many number of people participating, then these many people went out and had business alliances with other participants, which resulted in this revenue. Hence we should participate in more such events, we should get more such people, and 3 years down the lane, our ROI from this event should be, let's say, 150%, or or a 50% ROI. So this calculation, we actually did this through data analysis, where we made these statistical mathematical models, and we trained those people on those, and it is now institutionalized. So if you look at it, what happened was we helped them identify consistency in data, the way the data is collected, analyzed, and predicted with certain outcomes, etc. We gave them a lot of business intelligence and data modeling. And in their words, they said that 2,700 man hours is basically one person working for a day. So if you actually break it down, it is more than 10 hours of manual job every day. So manually, somebody is actually, if they want to input one person, if they want to do this work manually every day, they are going to spend more than 10 hours. No, if you have an 8-hour work hour in an office, every day you're going to spend 2 hours more than what you're so, and even, and if you're not paid overtime, typically today in the corporate world, managers and all are not getting any overtime pay. you know so instead of 8 hours, you end up working 10 hours, and you don't do anything else. All your other strategic jobs is on hold. So this is what data analytics can do for you. So, I'll come to the probably the last one or two slides of my presentation. So, what is it that it means, when you talk about data analytics as a career? It is time that you need to be prepared for this, because you cannot escape this if you do not have an aptitude for this. And I'm sure that all of you people have, because if you are a graduate or a postgraduate in commerce, in finance, in management, it means you have an aptitude for numbers. So if you have an aptitude for numbers, and if you have a very analytical kind of a mind, where you actually look at data, you want to look at inconsistencies, you want to look at what are the key highlights, etc., very analytical kind of a mind, it data analytics is a career for you. So it involves, like what I said, what is it that typically a person who is getting into this field will do? Will be data gathering, extracting, comparing, as I said, understanding, interpreting those numbers, and make a story out of it. You probably may not what is, when I say story, means every data point has a story, is what we always say. What we mean is the whole context of that. To give you a very quick example, in one of our clients, which is a fitness club, they used to send a lot of promotion message to someone. So we actually used to take one or two data sets as an example to try and test out if things were efficiently working. So they used to send out these messages to their clients, and it's the same group has a restaurant chain also. So yeah, so this was actually to the clients of this restaurant chain. They used to send these great offers about food, etc., etc., and this person never used to respond. And when this was presented to us as a case study to look at one particular aspect, we found that you know since it is the same company, same group also owned a fitness chain, this person had actually gone and joined a fitness club 3 months before. And here you are sending a promotion of maybe like a junk food to this person who is now into fitness food. So it is of no relevance to him. So that is what you mean by story. It's all about context. And when you analyze this, you will get the context of it. And finally, when you have all this information, when you can gather all this information, when you can analyze all this information, the way you present your findings to your superiors, or to yourself, if you are running your own company, or to the stakeholders or to the shareholders, etc., it will be much more precise, where they can take very informed business decisions. And what do you need to do? You only need to learn, and learning is so easy these days. There are a lot of courses right now. You have um, websites like Coursera, Udemy, and there are universities now, whether not just Indian universities, but even global universities. And recently I saw somewhere on one of the news sites, IIT has actually opened up a link where you can subscribe online to their data analytics courses, and it costs some 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees at a very, very low price. So, you don't even have to write an entrance exam to get into an IIT to learn data analytics. There are courses available which can do. And because of the current COVID situation, there are a lot of these big universities, both Indian and global, giving you a lot of courses. If you are interested, and I'm sure you should be interested, is what I would say, because this is the time that you can learn. And learning anything to do with data is never going to be a waste, especially if you are a finance professional. So go through those links. If you There are courses like Coursera and all, gives you a lot of courses which are free of cost. If you go to sites like LinkedIn, there are courses which are free of cost. The other thing that you should always do is Microsoft Excel. Be a master in that, because by the time you get to those tools, while we are talking about all these big tools and technologies, etc., bulk of the analytics and analysis in the finance world still happens on Excel. And you learn Excel, you master it. There are again online courses available, or while you're doing at your age, you can actually do it. You learn, learn macros, learn pivot, everything. How to coordinate between different cells, different files, different worksheets. And then there are open source technologies which again you can learn free of cost, like technologies like R and Python. And then if you look at tech platforms, there are big companies like IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, um, Amazon Web Services, Google, etc., who offer a lot of courses on their platforms and offer a lot of platforms which you can do that. And there are small children who are doing it. If you, for example, if you search for a boy, his name is Tanmay, and Tanmay Speaks is a YouTube channel that he has. IBM has come out with this data analytics and machine learning platform called Watson, WATSON. Tanmay is just about 11 or 12 years old. He is a brand ambassador for IBM now because he's learned that Watson platform, and he does a lot of things on that. So it's not beyond the reach of anyone, but it all depends on what you want. But essentially, I would just want to leave you with this thought that be prepared for a world of data analytics, because more and more, when you get into any job, whether it is a finance job or a management job, or a auditor's job or a consulting assignment, because finance professionals these days are much in demand. There are a lot of areas that they get into, and a finance professional with a very good understanding of how data works and how the learnings of data can be applied to actual business scenarios is going to be a real winner. So, yes, so that is all that I have to share with you guys. And I hope it has been useful. I hope it has given you some glimpse. This is not a topic that definitely you can cover in, definitely not in an hour or 45 minutes. My ambition or my whole objective humbly has been to just give you a sense of direction as to where it can take you. So that's it from my side. Thank you, everyone. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Thank you, sir. So, dear participants, you may interact with the resource person with your doubts or any queries. Either you can type it in the chat box or you can ask directly. So, please. So, dear participants, I think I think, sir, I think there is no doubts. Everything is clear.
I think someone has asked a question: difference between data analyst
Yeah,
and
yeah,
business analyst.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, it is in today's world. It is who has asked this? Vaishnavi. Yeah. So see, in today's world, there is not much of a difference between these two. But strictly, if you go by definition, a data analyst is somebody who looks at data, only data. So let's say if you are given an information, if you are given a data which talks about, let's take a balance sheet, more an example that you can relate to. If you're given a balance sheet, you will look at the entire balance sheet, you will study the balance sheet, you will look at the profit and loss, assets, liabilities column, and try to find out what makes sense. So this is what a data analyst will do. A business analyst is actually looking at it from a overview of a business perspective. So what is the impact of P&L on a business? What is the business scenario that you are working towards? So understanding the entire business as a whole is a business analyst job, whereas a data analyst by definition looks at purely that set of data with which he or she is working. But in today's world, a good business analyst also needs to be a good data analyst.
Okay, fine. I think there are no more doubts. So now we came to the end of our 7-day international webinar. I thank all our participants wholeheartedly for their interactive participation and making our webinar a grand success. Now, moving to the official format, I invite Ms. Anjana B, second week of finance, to share a feedback on today's session. Ms. Anjana, please.
Anil, sorry, can I
Yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir.
yeah, there is one more question which says, is data analytics better than Excel and Sheets, or Excel and Sheets are a part of DA? Yeah,
Oh,
Excel is basically one of the tools that you use for data analytics. So, do not confuse between a tool and the actual function. Data analytics is a function where you're analyzing data or scenario or anything. Excel is one of the tools that you can use for data analytics. That's a simple difference. Thank you. Yeah, Anil, please go ahead. Sorry.
okay, okay. Any more queries, participants? Okay, fine. So I would like to welcome Ms. Anjana for sharing the feedback. Anjana, please.
So, am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can please.
Thank you, sir. Respected dignitaries and my dear friends, good afternoon to all. Today, I am indeed honored to convey the student response for this great session led by Raj Pillai, sir. Thank you, Raj Pillai, sir, for this informative session. The session has really ignited a spark on the emerging era of data analytics and embedded the curiosity to know more about it. The facts and case-based presentation has helped us in connecting with the topic and provided us the insight in developing our own careers accordingly. Once again, thank you, Raj Pillai, sir, for this informative session and for spending your valuable time to edify us. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anjana. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Reshma Raj of MCOM, second MCOM, for a feedback on our 7-day international webinar. Reshma Raj, are you there?
Sir, I'm audible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please.
Respected resource person, Mr. Raj Pillai, sir, Director, Principal, Vice Principal of York Kshetra, HOD and faculties of Department of Commerce, and finally, dear participants, good afternoon to all. Today, we are coming to an end to the 7-day international webinar on emerging trends in commerce organized by the PG Department of Commerce. We went through 7 different sessions held by eminent personalities. Day 1 was carried out by Dr. Damayanti Armugam from Asia Pacific University, Malaysia, on the topic Forensic Accounting and Fraud, Things Must Move. Many of us were not much aware about this topic, but after that session, we all were well informed. Second day, we had Dr. Shankaran, Director, Justice, KS Hedge Institute of Management member. He dealt with teaching learning in the new era, application for commerce and management students. He discussed on the 6 facets of teaching, learning process, such as explanation, interpretation, etc. Day 3 was carried out by Mr. Narayana Nampia, CA, and is a partner of KPRSN and Company Chartered Accountants on the topic Digital Revolution, its effect on commerce students. He explained that digital revolution has a potential to raise global income levels and to improve the quality of life. Fourth day was by Mr. Rahul Rajendran, Finance Manager, Nexans Qatar. He expounded on the effects of COVID-19 on business. The positively and negatively affected sectors were also explained. Day 5 was by Mr. Murali Manohar, Head Finance, Precision Group, Dubai. He dealt with changing role of CFO. He made us understand that change is needed in order to survive and live. Sixth day were carried out by Mr. Khurshid Ahmed, IT Project Manager, Raymond James Bank, Canada, on the topic IT implications in international banking and common threats. He conducted the session by describing his own experiences from his career. Finally, today we had Mr. Raj Pillai, Strategy and Business Development, Data Analytics and AI at Analytics with the theme The Business of Data Analytics. We got a clear cut idea of data analysis and its various aspects and how far it has contributing to the modern business world. Really privileged to hear its scope and this opportunities too. Thank you so much, sir, for this delightful session. Now we have completed the 7-day international conference, and I'm sure that we are all going back with tons of knowledge. I take this opportunity to thank the management of York Kshetra, organizing committee, and all other faculties of Commerce Department for giving us this wonderful platform. I also express my gratitude towards the keen listeners. Once again, thank you all.
Thank you, Reshma. Next, I would like to welcome our greatest support, our HOD, Dr. Michelle Rani, for vote of thanks. Ma'am.
Thank you, Anil. I hope I am audible.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. A very warm good morning to one and all. It is my honor and privilege to propose a vote of thanks for the 7-day international webinar, Emerging Trends in Commerce. First and foremost, I would like to extend my gratitude to our director, Reverend Dr. Matthew Variel, for all his support and encouragement. Thank you, Father. I also express my heartfelt thanks to our Assistant Director, Reverend Father Shaiju Pariyat, Barsar, Reverend Father Shaju Ange Vittal, for their message and support. I am very much thankful to our Principal, Dr. Tommy Anthony, and Vice Principal, Reverend Dr. Lal Olikal, for their encouragement, motivation, and support. Next, I would like to express my sincere and heartfelt thanks to the most important persons, our resource persons, who enlightened us with their knowledge by spending their valuable time with us. I would like to thank our today's resource person, Mr. Raj Pillai, Strategy Business Development Soul Analytics UAE, for sharing his knowledge on the topic, the business of data analytics. I think all the participants have clearly realized the importance of data-driven decision making. And we people have now become familiar with all the terms like data analytics, data science, artificial intelligence, etc., which was explained through simple examples. It was also clear how time can be saved through data analytics and business intelligence. We have also understood the increasing opportunities in this area. Thank you very much, sir. It was a very informative session. Thank you. Now, I thankfully remember and take this opportunity to thank all our resource persons. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Damayanti from Asia Pacific University for introducing us to a new topic, forensic accounting, things must know. I also thank Dr. K. Shankaran, Director, Justice K.S. Hegde Institute of Management, for his visionary ideas on teaching and learning in the new era, application for commerce and management studies. I am also thankful to Mr. Narayan Nambiar, Chartered Accountant, for sharing his ideas on digital revolution, its effect on commerce students. My sincere thanks to Mr. Rahul Rajendran, Finance Manager, Nexens Qatar, for his talk on the topic Effects of COVID-19 in Business. I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Murli Manohar, Finance Head, Precision Group Dubai, for sharing his experience and views on the changing role of CFO. I also thank Mr. Khurshid Ahmed, IT Project Manager, Raymond James Bank, Canada, for his suggestions and experience sharing on IT implications in international banking and common threads. Once again, I thank all our resource persons. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rajpalai sir. It is my duty to thank one and all who contributed for the successful execution of the program. My sincere thanks to Ms. Aishwarya AB, the program coordinator, for all the hard work and strain she has undertaken, supported by the joint coordinators, Mr. Rohit and Ms. Reshma, assistant professors, Department of Commerce. Thank you for making this possible. I also thank Mr. Sujit and Girish from the IT department and the technical coordinators from our department for their timely help in executing this program. Along with that, I thank all my department faculty for their support and cooperation in the conduct of this webinar. My heartfelt thanks to Professor T.K. Rajan, Head Department of Mathematics, and Mrs. Shailaja Menon, Head Department of Management, for the inspiring message given. I also thank each member of Yuva family for their moral support. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants of this 7-day national webinar. Your active participation has really contributed to the success of this webinar. My heartfelt and sincere thanks to all of you, and I also request your cooperation and participation in our future endeavors. My sincere gratitude and thanks to one and all. Wish you all a great day ahead. Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Matilda ma'am. Once again, I thank you all participants for your participation and patient listening on these 7 days. Without you, the program won't be a success. So thank you all. Thank you, Raj Sir. Thank you for your support and for the wonderful session. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil sir.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Take care.
Thank you. Welcome, sir. Thank you. Bye.